A series of recent high-profile and multiple victim shootings are making people in Milwaukee uneasy. Just last weekend, there were 9 shootings on Saturday and Sunday. 2 people were killed, 12 were injured. It shattered the feeling of safety in neighborhoods around Milwaukee. We sat down with Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson to talk about the violence and what the city is doing now, the changes the mayor wants, and just what all of us can do to help stop the violence. Mayor Johnson, thank you so much for being here with us today. We do appreciate it.
Nice to be with you.
What are people telling you? What are people saying to you about their perceptions of crime in Milwaukee?
Well, so there are a number of things, right? I think that people, when they think about crime, they think about it at a personal level, right? When things happen to them or when they see things in the neighborhoods where they live or they watch the news. And of course, there's a focus on crime. But it's more than just that. You need to take a step back and look at the entire landscape, the entire picture. And so I can paint that picture for you here with the facts, the truth about where crime is in Milwaukee. So there has been, as of late, an unfortunate blip in homicides in the city, right? And those are, typically amongst individuals who should not have guns, people who are in conflict with one another and ultimately decide to solve those conflicts by use of handguns. And that's unfortunate, and people die as a result of that. But when you look at crime overall in the city, particularly with guns, and these Part 1 crimes that are reported by the FBI, they're down 17% from last year. They're down 20% from 2 years ago. And since I've become mayor, crime is down 25% overall in the city of Milwaukee. So I think those are the things that folks should really know and we should really take a look at.
That's what people should know, is that they should look at. But as you said, there's been this recent stretch of particularly violent crimes, homicides. How do you help people understand that this is a point in time, but not the full landscape and picture of what's happening crime-wise in Milwaukee?
Sure. So when I became mayor, I thought it was really, really important to level set with the people of Milwaukee and our region and state about the state of public safety in Milwaukee. And so every single quarter, myself, I'm joined by the chief of police, I'm joined by the leader of our Office of Community Wellness and Safety, and we just talk about the trends that we're seeing in crime. And so we've been very upfront with folks about where things are and where things stand. And those stats are just rattled off to you. That's where crime stands in Milwaukee today. We'll continue to do that every single quarter as a mayor in order to make sure that people understand and know what's going on. We also ask people in the community to be a part of the solution too, because it can't just be on me. It's not just on the police chief or the superintendent of schools. Folks in neighborhoods have a responsibility here too, and we encourage folks to stand up and do their part in order to make sure that we continue to drive crime ever lower in the city.
When you talk about the responsibility that people have, there are, I guess, at least 2 sets of people who have responsibilities. The first would be citizens, right? So what can we do as citizens to make a difference?
A number of things. I think citizens are probably the most important and most powerful part of the public safety equation. I often talk about partnerships, right? And I just rattled some of those folks off. It's myself, it's the police department, it's our Office of Community Wellness and Safety, it's our faith-based organizations. There's nonprofit organizations, youth-serving organizations out there as well. But citizens can play an extremely important role here too, because no matter how many police officers or pastors or mentors, there's only so many of those folks. But everybody who's committed some sort of act, they're going home to somebody, right? They're parents, they're grandparents, they're aunts, they're uncles, there's family, there's friends who are a part of these folks' lives. And so if you could reach out to the people that you know as a citizen and say, hey, knock it off over here, give them that real talk about what their actions are and how their actions negatively impact the people that they may be feuding with, yes. But if you shoot and kill somebody, you actually don't just hurt that person. There's a ripple effect around that. You're hurting their parents, you're hurting their kids, you're hurting their friends and their other family members, right? You're creating a hole in the community. So if regular citizens do that with the people that they know and they care about, there's nothing that we can't do.
Well, the other group that's responsible then are those very people you're talking about, those folks who find themselves in a situation that they shouldn't be in. How do we reach out to them more directly? Because if you've got someone who may be getting into difficulty it may be a difficult conversation for people in the community to have with someone who they know may have already been in trouble.
Yeah, well, look, difficult conversations are going to happen regardless, right? Because either we're going to have a difficult conversation on the front end in a preventive sort of manner to make sure that they don't, commit acts of death or harm or destruction, or we're going to have a hard conversation on the backside after they've done that, and then they have to end up suffering the consequences. That's the public safety philosophy that I've been building in the city of Milwaukee. It's on accountability and it's on prevention, right? I don't want for anybody to be in a situation or in a position where they feel that they've got to use a gun or hurt somebody or cause death, harm, or destruction in the city. Certainly don't want that to happen. Certainly don't want my constituents, the citizens of the city or region, to be befallen with violence. If you do, though, you should know that my request to the police department is for you to be arrested and for you to suffer the consequences to the fullest extent of the law. But there's prevention on the backside of that, right? On the front side of that. I want to make sure that young people have the opportunity to get a quality education. I want to make sure that the adults in their lives have the opportunity to get access to a good paying, family supporting job to create stability in neighborhoods. And when stability in neighborhood happens and folks are able to watch out for each other, see their neighbors, kids grow up and know their pets and cars and all that sort of stuff, neighborhoods are not porous and the people who live there are not transient. That's how you create the greater stability, which leads to the public safety that all of us want to see. I saw this in practice just yesterday, as a matter of fact. I went on a neighborhood walk in the Arlington Heights neighborhood on the north side of the city. And that's exactly what was at play. It was a random block I chose and we walked on. But the folks who lived there on that particular block, they said, yeah, everybody around here is a homeowner. We look out for each other, right? We build that sort of community and nothing happens here. Absolutely nothing. And that's what I want to build in neighborhoods across the city.
We can talk about neighborhoods in just a minute, but I do want to talk about some high-profile incidents that have happened in downtown Milwaukee. You're going to be meeting, the city will be meeting with business leaders and business owners on Water Street. What more can the city already do when those types of very high-profile instances happen right in the heart of Milwaukee's downtown?
I think there are a number of things that we can do, a number of things that business owners can do in order to affect public safety here, some of which I'm discussing with the chief of police. We're still fleshing those things out, so I don't want to say exactly what those are right now. But there are a number of things the council is able to do as well in terms of licensing for business and their plans of operation and make sure there's proper public safety. Maybe there are some things that are happening there that are attractive to folks who are causing disruptions and violence on the street downtown. There's one street in particular, Water Street, where this has been an issue. It's not prevalent all throughout downtown, but just in this one particular area. So maybe there are things in a focused manner that we can do, working with the police department, working with the licensing authority of the Common Council, and other parts of my administration, again, like our Office of Community Wellness and Safety, in order to better address the issue.
Whether these situations are happening in downtown Milwaukee or they're happening in neighborhoods, there seem to be two things in common. One is the fact that these are situations that are occurring where there's conflict that people aren't handling well. And the other element that's in there is guns. Guns are so easily accessible. What, as a mayor, can you do about that? Or do you need to get help from the city and the state to address the gun issue?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because you're right. There are too many people with very poor conflict resolution skills, right? Back when I was growing up, like folks would either, talk it through, maybe they yell at each other and then walk away. If it came down to it, maybe you'd have a fist fight and you'd get a bloody nose, but you would live to the next day and talk about the story. And maybe you'd end up playing basketball or whatever with the person you were beefing with. Now, apparently we live in a city with people who can't fight, I guess. And so they got to whip out a gun in order to solve a dispute. And so whether that's downtown or whether it's in neighborhoods, it's a problem. But what can we do about that in the city of Milwaukee? There are a number of things that we do. The things that I just mentioned in terms of youth programming, in terms of working with our partners in the faith community, the police department, Office of Community Wellness and Safety, having gun locks available for free, telling people when they bring guns into the city, when they go to events and things like that, make sure those guns are locked away so folks can't break into their cars searching for the guns, because that is a trend, not just just here, but in cities all across the country. They're breaking into cars to find guns, not looking for money or jewels or laptops. They're trying to find weapons to hurt people. So we can work to make sure the word is out on those things. But we don't control gun law at the local level. That's the critical thing that I think people need to understand. The mayor of the city of Milwaukee does not control gun law. That is a state of Wisconsin issue. It's a federal issue as well. So from the state government to the federal government, we need our partners to do their jobs to make sure that folks who should not have their hands on guns. That's an important distinction, because I think people will try to twist my words and say, the mayor wants for, people who are hunting and things like that not to have access to guns. That's false. I want criminals who should not have their hands on guns to not get the access, so that they don't end up hurting people in our neighborhoods.
And how do you get the state to help you in that? How do you get the federal government to help you? If you could ask them for anything, what would you ask them to do around gun laws and regulations to make not only Milwaukee, but as we've seen over the past couple of days, any community safer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got issues with homicides in the city of Milwaukee, people who shouldn't have their hands on guns. But there are non-fatal shootings that happen not just in the city, but elsewhere in the state of Wisconsin. There's homicides that happen suicides rather, that happen in other parts of the state of Wisconsin as well. So we should look at both of those things and showcase the fact that this is not an urban issue alone. It's not a city issue alone. So there are a number of bills that have been well discussed over the years that I think could have an impact on this issue. For instance, guns are specifically designed to kill people, to hurt human beings. So why is it that if you go out and buy a car, right, you got to get licensed, you got to get insurance on those things, but you don't have to get a background check or any of those things when you get a gun? Like, that's a problem to me. So we got to work to make sure that there are background checks. If somebody, whether in the city or out in a rural community, may be in a position where they may create harm to themselves or others, maybe we should have some sort of red flag law or other check with people that they know, that they care about, to make sure that, this is a person who's safe to have a gun, so they don't end up harming themselves or harming other people. There are so many other things that have been proposed over the years that make common sense that we should implement here in the state of Wisconsin, so that more people don't find themselves or their family members or their kids in a position where they get harmed by somebody who has a gun and shouldn't.
One thing that you don't have any control over as mayor either is the fact that we've noticed in a couple of these cases, the individuals who are accused of committing these crimes, it's not the first time they've been in trouble. And they may have had what some people might consider to be relatively minor consequences. Is this something that the judicial system needs to work with communities on, so we really take a look at what's happening to individuals, and when they're coming back into the community, how that's happening?
Yeah, you're 100% correct on that. And look, I believe in opportunities for people. I believe sometimes people do make mistakes, but then sometimes people make choices too, right? Let me sort of spell that out with a recent example. So a little better than 10 years ago, there was a young man who robbed a family member of mine and did it at gunpoint. He was a felon, should not have had his hands on a gun. He was arrested and was processed, and again, shouldn't have had his hands on a gun. More than a decade later, he ended up shooting a police officer. Just a couple of weeks ago, over on Hampton Avenue, Officer Sam Schwabenlander, he was shot by this very same person, a felon who should have not had his hands on a gun, right? That's a problem to me. And so at first, maybe you made a mistake when you were a young person. I get that. But these years later, you continue to make those choices now with a gun, then you should have stiffer penalties and consequences. And I've said from the outset, since I've been mayor, that anybody who causes death, harm, or destruction in Milwaukee should pay a price. Now, I understand that there shouldn't be a cookie cutter sort of response to that. Some people need just a stern talking to and will never commit an act of violence or theft or anything again. But for folks who continually repeat that behavior and hurt people in our community, they should pay a stiffer consequence. And that's exactly what I believe. That's exactly what should happen.